we're up to Sif base, right? Simon Tofresh Bay, page 298. Sif base. Okay, so we saw that in the first we saw that we read Pasha Shkolim when Rosh Chodesh Adar falls on Shabbos, and if Rosh Chodesh Adar falls during the week, we read Pasha Shkolim the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh. Sif base. But Shabbos Shnia, the second Shabbos, we're seeing base Sforim. So you get two Sifrei Torah. Echad Koyre Pasha Shashar. One is for the regular Leining. V'Sheni Koyre Zochor. The second is for Pasha Zochor. Zochor Eis Asher Osa L'Cho Amalek. The psukim which tell us about Amalek coming to fight the Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar after they left Mitzrayim, after Kriyas Yamsuf. Umaftir Pokatzi Eis Asher Osa Amalek. And the Haftorah is from Shmuel, where Shaul went to fight Amalek. Right. Mishnah Berurah Sif Kotten V'Ov. As we saw before, that whenever you have two Sefer Torah, when you do the Chatzi Kaddish at the end of Leining, you first put down the second Sefer Torah on the Bima, and then you say the Chatzi Kaddish with both of them on the Bima.
So in this case, there would be 3 Sefer Torah on the first Shabbos, and then 2 Sefer Torah on the second Shabbos.
In the case where Rosh Chodesh Adar fell on Shabbos, yes, correct. So we've gotten Zayin Amalek Ad Lo Yisishkach until the end of the parasha, which tells us so we mustn't forget what Amalek did to us. So we've gotten Ches Pokadati Kein Hu Berambam Ubelvish Isa Vayom Shmuel Koyomar Hashem Pokadati Isa Asher Osa L'Goyim. So the Vush has to start I think one pasuk earlier. I think we do. Okay. What do we do exactly? I should really remember exactly what we do. It's my bar mitzvah. Right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Right. This is the Sfardim start Vayom Shmuel al Shaul. Who said to do Vayom Shmuel al Shaul? That's interesting. The first pasuk starts Vayom Shmuel Shol Osi Sholach Hashem Nimshachach Ol Melech. That's where the Sfardim start, and then we start a pasuk later Koyomar Hashem Tzavokos Pokatati Is Asher Osa Amalek. So I'm not sure what's going on here because the Shulchan Aruch just read Pokatati Is Asher Osa Amalek, which is starts from the 5th word of the second pasuk. So presumably
that's the Koyomar pasuk.
Yeah, and then he said the Levush says Vayom Shmuel Koyomar Hashem Pokatati. So what does it mean Vayom Shmuel? There isn't a pasuk Vayom Shmuel Koyomar Hashem. Vayom Shmuel are the first 2 words of the first pasuk, and Koyomar are the first words of the second pasuk. So maybe he means to start the first pasuk and then read the second pasuk. Okay, I don't know. I'm just unclear exactly what they mean. But the way the minhag, the minhagim are that we start from pasuk base, and the Sfardim start from we start from pasuk base Koyomar Hashem, and the Sfardim start from pasuk Aleph Vayom Shmuel Shal.
That brings up an interesting question. Why is there a difference where we start and end with the Haftorahs? There seems to be almost always a difference between where the Ashkenazim and the Sephardim begin and end.
Right.
Where does that change? The difference in minhag come?
Why is the difference in minhag?
Yeah. Why?
Because we were apart for 2,000 years, so there's a difference in the minhag. We read from the Minyana Duyoma, the idea is to read the same subject matter as the Torah, but exactly which psukim to start from and. As you can see, there's been a difference in minhagim. The other minhagim in terms of haftorahs that we don't seem to have nowadays in any place. For example, the minhag of reading Sos Osus when you have a chosen. There are places where they made a special haftorah every time you had a Shabbos chosen and oifruv. And there are some places where they just read the first few psukim of the haftorah in addition to the regular haftorah. There are different minhagim. Nowadays, I don't know of any place that do this haftorah at all. So, as with everything, there's a number of different minhagim.
I have a kind of strange note in my copy on this. It says, i.e., he adds a verse of Shmuel 15:1. The transcription here is faulty.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Something's not right here. So who's adding? The Levush is adding the first pasuk. Where's he writing on the Mishabura?
This is on the Levush.
On the Levush, yeah, that's what I thought. So he's adding in the first pasuk, Vayom Meshmor, but it doesn't start Vayom Meshmor, because that's why I got confused at the beginning. That's why I didn't think I recognised that pasuk, right? It's because there's no pasuk Vayom Meshmor Kol Ma'ashem. The pasuk is Vayom. The first pasuk is Vayom Meshmor. Right. It means to add in that pasuk before reading then the second pasuk, Koyom Hashem. Right. So it looks like it's one pasuk, Vayom Mishmor Koyom Hashem, but it's not. So say the first pasuk, Vayom Mishmor, and then the second pasuk, Koyom Hashem.
Like there's a comment.
So he's adding in this the first pasuk, right? Which turns out then that the Sfardim are doing like this. Interesting. The Sfardim are doing like the Vush, and the Ashkenazim are doing like the Shulchan Aruch, which is the opposite of what you'd think, right? The Levush lived in Europe, and the
right.
Ashkenazim. Okay. And let's continue. Where are we up to?
Gimel.
Siv Gimel. The Shabbos Shlishi Shu Tes Vav Badar. The third Shabbos, which turns out Tes Vav Badar. We're continuing with the Shulchan Aruch writing it the way it's written in the Mishnah, which is we're assuming that Rosh Chodesh Adar fell on Shabbos. Right? So if we're assuming Rosh Chodesh Adar fell on Shabbos, we're now in the third Shabbos in Adar, which falls on the 15th of Adar. And Mafsikin. There's no special Haftorah on this week, right?
And then if Shabbos is Tesvav, then
it's
that would be the
Purim.
Shabbos after Purim.
It's the Shabbos after Purim. When Yerushalayim, this is Purim itself. B'Shabbos Daled Shehu Chafeis L'Adar on the fourth Shabbos, which is the 22nd of Adar, it's in base for him. Again, you take out two Sefer Torah. B'Echad Koyah b'Parshas HaShavua. B'Sheni Koyah Parshas Parah. Here, the second Sefer Torah is for Parshas Parah. U'Maftev Zorakti Aleichem Ma'im Tehorim. Hey, the Haftorah which was actually from Haftorah from Yecheskel about HaKadosh Baruch Hu was La'osid Lovo was sprinkled on us metaphorically Mayim Tahorim, water to purify us from our virus. Sif Cotton Mishbu Sif Cotton Tes Hashavua Umanichin Shania Etzela Umanichin again he says the same thing. Sivkon Yud Parah b'Parshas Chukas mitchilas HaSeder Tzitmat HaOrev. Parshas Parah is from the beginning of Parshas Chukas. Right? Sivkon Yud Aleph Ein L'Kamom B'Sim Kuvlam Zay Sif Hei Shom B'Vo Em To'ov L'Gomar Kol HaParasha. Okay, let's continue. Sif Daled. B'Shabbos Chamishi Shehu Chof Tes B'Adar Motzin Beis Sfarim. We're now up to the fifth Shabbos, which is the 29th of Adar. One takes out two Sfarim, two Sefer Torah, B'Echad Koyah Parshas HaShavua, V'Asheni HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem. Here the second one is for Parshas HaChodesh, which is HaChodesh Hazeh Lochem, which is from Parashas Boi. Umafti Borishoin Be'echad HaChodesh, which is also from Yecheskel, which is about the Korbanos, Le'aseh Lovo, the special Korbanos we're going to read, we're going to bring in Chodesh Nisan, the time of the Geula.
That's my moment.
Oh yeah? Very good.
Very long time.
They've gotten. Okay, so if you base again, he tells us to put the second save next to the first one and say Chasi Kaddish. So if you give a lochem ad toichu matzos, because Chodesh Chodesh Nisan b'Shabbos. When Chodesh Nisan falls on Shabbos, which we mentioned yesterday is going to happen this year, Miz Hashem. She'ozu Parshas HaChodesh. Right, so we have three Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Parshas HaChodesh. We have 10 Parshas HaChodesh, V'voloi Hashemayim Kissi. So we read the Haftorah of Parshas HaChodesh, and not the Haftorah of Rosh Chodesh. Hashemayim Kissi is the Haftorah of Rosh Chodesh. We think Gibel Sfarim, we take out three Sefer Torah. Be'echad Koyim Parshas HaShavua, Manichin HaShnei V'ein Oimim Kaddish. The first one you read the Parshas HaShavua. Then we put down the second one. We don't say Kaddish. There's no Kaddish in between the first two Sefer Torah, because the first Sefer Torah we only called up 6 people, right? Where it says Shvi'i in the Chumash, and we ignore that and we continue. We read from Shishi all the way to the end. We don't call up the 7th person. We then read Shvi'i from the second Sefer Torah. The second Sefer Torah is not Maftir. The second Sefer Torah is not that we're reading 2 Maftirs. The second Sefer Torah is Shvi'i. Right? So there's no Chatzi Kaddish between the first and the second Sefer Torah, because it's it's part of the 7 aliyahs. The whole point of the Kaddish is to separate between the 7 aliyahs and Maftir. Right? So there's no Kaddish between the first 2 Sefer Torah. However, one still should put down the second Sefer Torah on the bima before doing Hagbah on the first one. Right? So that we're not Mesiach Das, that we always have a Sefer Torah on the bima, so we don't take our mind off the laning.
So you say the Shvi is Rosh Chodesh.
The Shvi is from the second Sefer Torah, which is Rosh Chodesh, right? Why Rosh Chodesh? We mentioned because Todesh She'eino Todesh Kodim. When we have a choice of doing two mitzvahs, we pick the one that's more frequent takes precedence. So Rosh Chodesh is more frequent, so we read that the second one. And when Kaddish, then we do Hagbah to the first one. We go in and roll it up. We open the second one. We open the Parashas Rosh Chodesh. Min Uvim HaShabbos Ad V'Niskei. This we mentioned. We read Parashas Rosh Chodesh. We don't read the first parasha of the Korban Atomic like we do when Rosh Chodesh falls during the week. We read like when Rosh Chodesh falls on Shabbos. We read just the second 2 parashas, the parasha of the Psukim of Shabbos, and then the Musaf of Rosh Chodesh.
If it weren't for it being Shkolem,
yes,
or
in this case Parashat
Chodesh, it would be the Maftir, right?
Yes, correct.
So it's almost seems almost artificial to make it part of the parsha itself. It's completely disconnected, really, from the parsha. It's connected to the moment of the year, but not to the parsha itself.
Correct.
Which is normal for Maftir.
Correct. That's what we're stressing. That's not what defines if it's a Maftir or not. What defines if it's called Maftir or not is we have to call up 7 Kurim to read from the Torah. It doesn't have to be from the same Inyan. It could be 6 from the parasha and 1 from Rosh Chodesh. The main is to have 7, which is how many we're supposed to call up in Shabbos. Then we make a Kaddish to separate from that. Now we finish the Chiv, how many we have to bring. Now we're going to call up another one for Maftir.
As opposed to having 2 Maftirs.
Right.
And reading the parsha.
Right. There's no such thing as 2 Maftir, because the idea of Maftir is the person who's going to get called up to read the Haftorah.
Right.
The reason why he calls Maftir is so that to show that the covet of the Torah is more important than the covet of the Haftorah. So even the person who reads from the Haftorah has to first of all read from the Torah beforehand. That's why he gets called up for Maftir.
Which is Shorish of Maftir.
Now, that's what I'm explaining now. Because
what does it mean?
What's the source of the word?
Oh, the word. It's the same as the word Haftorah. I mean, it means he ends off like in Maftirin Achar Pesach Hafikoman. You don't end off. It's the lashon to end off, to finish off. And when someone leaves someone else, it's called to liftor mechaveiro. Someone who's leaving, so he's separating. He's ending off. It's called. Right?
The word pater.
I don't know if it's the same word as potter. Maybe it's got some connection. To separate, to leave off.
To invalidate.
Right. I don't know if there's a connection between that.
Separate to make the same as
So again, there's no such concept as 2 Maftirs as well. Right. So the whole point of Maftir is the person who's going to read the Haftorah, he then reads from the Torah beforehand. So that's in this case the third Sefer Torah. The second Sefer Torah can't be a Maftir. There's no such thing as the second Maftir. So we read it as part of the 7 aliyahs, and therefore we knock one off the parasha. We only read 6 from the parasha. Then we place the 3rd one on the bimah. Kaddish. Right, so when we say Kaddish, we just have the 2nd and the 3rd Sefer Torah on the bimah. The 1st Sefer Torah is still sitting on the chair behind. Kaddish. Then we say Kaddish. Then we do Hagbah and Kehilla on the 2nd Sefer Torah. Then we open the 3rd one and read for the Maftir Parashat Chodesh. We mentioned yesterday that if by mistake they did it the wrong way round and they laid Parashat HaChodesh before Rosh Chodesh, then you would have to do the Haftorah of Rosh Chodesh, because Haftorah always has to be the Haftorah connected to the final Torah reading. So it's supposed to be that you end off with Parashat HaChodesh, which is why we read the Haftorah of Parashat HaChodesh. However, if the shul was to get it the wrong way around by mistake and end off with the laying of Rosh Chodesh, they would then read Hashemayim Kirsi, which if they were laying from a klaf, it would be quite tricky for the Baal Chorah. The Hashemayim Kissi is a very common Haftarah, so if he was a regular Barker, he'd probably be okay with it.
Yes, that's true.
So where are we up to? So if Chol Rosh Chodesh Adar HaSomach LeNisan, Toich Yomei HaShavua. Okay, now we're talking about, till now we've been talking about where Rosh Chodesh Adar fell on Shabbos. If Rosh Chodesh Adar fell during the week, as it does this year, Vafilu Be'erev Shabbos, that's mamish this year, right? This year falls on Erev Shabbos. Makdim and Likros Parashat Shkolim b'Shabbos Shelefonov. So we read Parashat Shkolim the week beforehand, which in this case is this week, this Shabbos. Umafsikim b'Shniya, and then the second week there's going to be a break. In this case, which is most years, right? In any case, in any year where Rosh Chodesh does not fall on Shabbos, the second Shabbos, meaning the first Shabbos of Nisan, the first Shabbos of Adar, right, will not have a special parasha. Why is this? Why do we make a break between Shkolim and Zochar? Zochar has to be the one before Purim. So in this case, you're going to have two in between Shkolim and Purim. So we'd read Zochar, and the second one, the first one would be a break. If Purim fell on Erev Shabbos, we mentioned that even if Purim falls on Erev Shabbos, and therefore you might think to read Parshas Zochar on the day after Purim, so that's very close to Purim, and this is not the case. We always read Parshas Zochar the week before Purim, even if it's a break of 6 days, as we mentioned, because it says in the Megillah, these days have to be remembered and then carried out. So we do the remembering, the reading of Parshas Zochar before the carrying out, before the mitzvah of Purim. There's no mitzvah. Let's continue. Seif Vov. Hayomim shero'u likbor b'hem Rosh Chodesh Adar zavdu. The days that one can fix Rosh Chodesh Adar are zavdu, meaning Zayin, Yom Zayin Shabbos, Yom Beis, which is Monday, Yom Dalet is Wednesday, Yom Vov is Friday. Those days can be Rosh Chodesh Adar. Rosh Chodesh Adar cannot fall on Sunday, Tuesday, or Thursday. Right? The similar Shabbos is Hafsokah. Right? That's because that's to do with the way they fix the Loach. So that we don't have Yom Kippur falling on Friday or Sunday, and so that Hoshana Rabbah does not fall on Shabbos, right? Because of that, Rosh Chodesh Adar can't fall on those on Sunday, Tuesday, or Thursday. The Simon the Shabbos is Hafsokah, a way of remembering the Shabbos where there's no special Haftorah. Zatu Bu Dadaviu. Right? What does this mean? What does it stand for? It's a good way of remembering. The Gemara in Eruvin says that how do you remember your Torah learning? It says you have to make simonim. You have to make simonim to help you remember things. Right? If you try it yourself, you'll see that the best way of making simonim is by making strange ones. The strangest sounding simonim are the ones that stick in your head longest. Right? It's the best way of remembering things. So what does it stand for? We have to understand what it stands for. Zatu Zayin, right? It says Zayin Tesvov. Zayin, when Rosh Chodesh Adar falls on Yom Zayin, meaning Shabbos, then the Shabbos Hafsokah, the Shabbos when there's no Shabbos Hafsokah means the Shabbos when there's no special parasha, that falls on Tesvov, the 15th of Adar, which is the case we already discussed, right? Then Bu is when Rosh Chodesh falls on Beis, meaning Rosh Chodesh falls on Monday. Then the Shabbos Hafsokah is Vov, which is on the 4th of Adar, there will be a Shabbos Hafsokah. Dad, when Rosh Chodesh Adar falls on Yom Dalet, meaning Wednesday, then the Shabbos Hafsokah will be on Dalet Adar. And then we had Uvyu, when Rosh Chodesh Adar falls on Friday, on Yom Vov, on Friday, then there's going to be two Shabbos Hafsokah. Number one on Beis, which is the second Beis Adar, second day of Adar, and also on Yud Vov, meaning Tes Zayin Adar. Right, it's clear how it works? So that's how to remember it. Zatu Bu Dadaviu. Just say it a few times, it will stick. Koloma. Oh, he's going to explain it now. Oh, I didn't realise. Okay, he's going to explain now what we just said. Koloma, because Chol Rosh Chodesh V'Shabbos Mafsikim B'Chamish Asa Boy Simen Zatu. Shechol B'Yom Beis Mafsikim B'Vov Boy Simen Bu. Shechol B'Yom Dalet Mafsikim B'Dalet Boy Simen Dad. Shechol B'Yom Vov Mafsikim B'Shtei Shabbos Beis Boy V'Yud Vov Boy Simen Uvyu. As we explained just now. Okay. Let's continue. If Zayin. Yesh Oimrim. She Parshas Zochar u Parshas Parah Aduma Chayovim Lekorim Mid'eraisa. Some say the Parshas Zochar and Parshas Parah are midaraisa, right? Which means it's more important than any other leining, because the regular leining is not deraisa, right? There's a takon of Moshe Rabbeinu to lein the Parshas Moradim. The fact that we complete the parasha every year is a minhag, right? There were times when they would complete the whole Sefer Torah every year. They would complete it once every 3 years, right? But Parshas Zochar and Parshas Paraduma are midaraisa, so they're very, very important to hear them.
That was before there was Simchas Torah, I guess.
That's right. There was no those days they would have Simchas Torah, so it would be more rare, I guess. They would do it every 3 years. So people live in a village, a small village, in a small yeshuv where there's no minyan. They'd have to come to a place where there's a minyan on these Shabbosos in order to hear Parshas Zochar and Parshas Parah, because they are min haTorah, they are from the Torah. If they can't come, it says the Ramah, if they can't come, the minimum they should do is to read it from a chumash with the correct tunes. So if Kotan Mishabos of Kotan Yud Dalet, Shapasha Zochar, Dichsiv, Zochar Eis Asher Osav V'Chula, V'Gominum B'Gmora, the Hai Zochar Hainu Ba'amiru B'Toich HaSefer. Right, it says in the Pasuk, they have to remember. You have to remember what Amalek did to us. And the Zochar, the Gemara learns that Zochar is Ba'amiru B'Toich HaSefer. You have to remember it. How do you remember it? Through reading it from a Sefer Torah. Davka. It's not good enough what he fixes it if he just remembers it in his heart. He has to actually read it from a Sefer Torah. That's how the Gemara Megillah learns it out. And therefore, the Baal Korah has to have in mind to be motzi all the people listening, and also the people listening should have kavanah to be yotze. Right? It's generally the minhag that the Rav or the Gabba claps on the bimah and tells everyone to have in mind to be yotze. So Mr. Derai said they should have in mind to be yotze. It's interesting. What's interesting is that there's a few other places in the Torah where it says Zochar. This is not the only place. Right? It says Zochar is Hashem, and you have to remember what Hashem did to Miriam. Hashem gives us all our wealth, all our strength comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a few other places where it says Zochar.
Shabbos.
By Shabbos, Zochar is by Shabbos the Kaddish, that's right. There's a few others where it says not to forget. Don't forget Ma'amad HaSinai. There's also some in Nach that say Zochar, to remember what Zochar is Asher Yo'atz Bilon, that Bilam advised against us. Why is this the only one that's a mitzvah deraisa? The only one the Gemara darshans and says you have to remember from a sefer is this one, right? Which is why this is the one that's fixed halacha. We have to remember deraisa. There are other opinions that the other ones are also deraisa. The Sefer Charedim holds that all the times it says Zochar or Hisham and the Torah deraisa, and that's the source. If you look in the Siddur at the end of Shachris, there are Sheish Zechiros. The 6 Zechiros, some of them even add another 4, which including some of the other ones we mentioned, like Bilon, which also was a Novi. The source is one of the Rishonim, the Sefer Charedim, who holds that every time it says Zochar, like Amalek, one has to remember it. And therefore it's in the Siddur every day. Therefore, one who says it should have in mind that he's doing a mitzvah deraisa according to the Sefer Charedim. The reason why most of Kal Yisrael don't do it is because it's not brought by the main Rishonim, it's not brought by Halacha in the Shulchan Aruch. But it's if someone who does it, it's a good thing to do, and one is becoming a mitzvah deraisa according to the Sefer Charedim. Let's continue. Sukkot Tesvav, Parashat Parah Duma, V'har ba'achroinim kosvish, a Parashat Zu Eina Midaraisa. The Shulchan Aruch writes that Parashat Parah is a mitzvah deraisa. A number of achroinim, many achroinim, write that Parashat Parah is not deraisa. So Zochar, according to everyone, is deraisa. Parashat Parah is a machloikes. If it's a midaraisa or midrabanon, v'ayin le'avusim and samach sev kot yud b'mishbud afilu b'mitzvah rabanon gam kin tzorch lechavin not say sidei ha-mitzvah. And the Mishnah says there's no difference. One has to have in mind to be yotze, even though it's a drabanon, one still has to have a special kavanah to be yotze.
Everybody agrees that Zochar is deraisa? Is that what we said?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's the reason in the Gemara. That's clear in the Gemara Megillah.
There are very few things that are without dispute.
Right.
This is one of them.
So if Cotton says that in the Mokum Sheish Minyan of Chula, Hainu Afilu Yesh Lo Sefer Torah B'Veisai, Elo She'ein Lo Minyan B'Veisai. Even if he has a Sefer Torah in his house, but he hasn't got a minyan, Afilu Ne'ema de Minyan LeParshat Zochar Midrabanan Ba'alma, Al ponim ikar kriyas zocher hu d'oraisa. Right? So here you wanted to dispute. He brings one in for you. Right? Even if we hold that the minion for Parshas Zocher is Rabbanan, that could be Rabbanan. Even if you hold that leaning it with 10 people is Rabbanan, however, the main kriya is definitely D'oraisa. Definitely one has to read Parshas Zocher with D'oraisa. It could be that needing a minion for Parshas Zocher, it could be that's Rabbanan.
So that means that if you had a Torah without a minion, most Shabbos you wouldn't read from it, you'd read from a Chumash. But on this Shabbos, you would read this parsha.
Right. Because it's to those opinions. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. He brings in the Sharetzin that the opinion of the Rosh. The Rosh, one of the Rishonim, Rabbi Eliezer, he holds that that he's the one who writes that one needs a minion for Parshas Zocher b'Doraisa. But the Mishnah says it's unclear what his source is, but it's based on the Rosh. Let's continue. V'hinei, b'tshumas hadeshen kosav, d'shmias kriyas Parshas Zocher b'asora, odef v'yoser. So, it's exactly 22 now. Do you prefer that we finish the sermon, or should we stop here?
I don't know that. Yes.
It will take us probably another 3 minutes.
Okay.
You prefer to stop?
No, let's finish the next 3 minutes and then I'll dash out.
Okay. V'nei b'tshumas hadeshen kosav, d'shmias kriyas Parshas Zocher b'asora, odef v'yoser mimiko megillah b'tzibur. The Chumas Hadeshen, it was in one of the Rishonim in Ashkenaz, near the end of the Tukuf of the Rishonim, near the end of the period of the Rishonim, he holds that reading Parshas Zocher with 10 people, the minion, is more important than the Megillah. Because according to the most opinions, one can hear Kriyas Megillah without a minion. If he can't do both, he lives in a place far away from the minion, he can choose either Parshas Zocher with a minion or Megillah with a minion. So he should rather go for Parshas Zocher with a minion. Yirah l'kaim kriyas Parshas Zocher b'tzibur. Aval ha'mogn avom tzadid to toiv yoyser sheyovel l'mokim shekona Megillah b'tzibur u'Parshas Zocher yoyter al pi adachak b'mash yishma ha'kriya b'Purim Parshas Vayver Amalek the bezen nami zoycher ma'as Amalek yoyser deichei v'osei. The Mogravam disagrees on this. The Mogravam holds that one should rather come to the minion on Purim and hear Kriyas HaMegillah. He will then, as well as Kriyas HaMegillah b'tzibur, he will also hear the laning on Purim, which is the laning of Vayover Amalek. Says the Mogravam, you are also used to the mitzvah b'Doraisa by hearing Vayover Amalek. You don't have to hear the laning of Parshas Zocher, which is for the end of Kiseitze, when Moshe recounts what happened. Right? One can learn from Parashas Vayover Amalek, which is when it actually happened, and then the Parashas Peshalach, which is learning on Purim. One is also used through that learning and the remembering by Amalek. So he gets 2 in 1. Kills 2 birds with 1 stone. The mitzvah is tzriches kavana. If he does this, he would therefore have to have in mind to be used to the. Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, no, we'll stop here. Right? We'll stop. Okay, so we didn't make it in the 3 minutes. Okay.
It's my understanding the person.
Sorry, just one thing. If this is every day that it's very important we stop at 22, or there's some days where it's a little bit? Every single day. Okay, fine. So we'll try and we stop at 22. So maybe the question is, if we finish an Indian 2 minutes before 22, maybe should we rather stop then? Because I wasn't sure what to do. We started the new Seif a few minutes before 22, so I wasn't sure what to do.
What do you suggest?
What do you recommend?
I think it's probably better to stop early rather than to rush through the.
Rather than rush through or to stop.
Yeah, because there's a tremendous amount of pressure on you when you're in the last 2 minutes.
Fine, so better rather stop a few minutes early for the end of it. Okay.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So my understanding is that the person laning Torah, there's 3 times during the year in which we read Zachor, actually, right? And the person.
So would you say this 3 times? Why 3 times?
Parsha Zachor.
Yeah.
Purim. And when you read.
No, but Parshas Purim is a different parsha. Again, Parshas Purim, there's 2 times in the Torah where it tells us about the war on Amalek. One is in Parshas Peshalach. Peshalach is after they crossed the Yam Suf. That's when Amalek went to fight them.
Right.
Okay. So then it tells us that Amalek went to fight Amalek.
But this
that's Parshas Peshalach. The Parshas Zocher is not from there. The Parshas Zocher is from Parshas Kiseitze, which is when Moshe in Sefer Devarim recounts everything that happened in the Midbar. He recounts also the Ma'aseh of Amalek, and that's what we read in Parshas Zocher, the recount of Moshe in the Parshas Kiseitze.
We read that on Shabbos Zachor.
Yeah.
We read it on Kiseitze.
Yeah.
Right. And Is it not a part of the reading on Purim itself? Didn't we just say that?
No. On Purim we read Vayover Amalek, which is Parshas Beshalach. So we're reading the Parsha from Shalach twice, and we're reading the Parsha from Kiseitze twice.
Okay. And the person learning Torah in all three of those situations has in mind that he's reading what for Zachor for. Because in here we're saying that if you have to choose between a minyan for Zachor or a minyan for Purim, the argument that you would not go for Zachor, you would go for Purim, was that we're reading a memory of.
Right, correct.
But that means that the person learning Torah has to have that in mind.
That's right, yeah. So that's a good point. The person reading the Torah on Purim should have in mind that he's been motzi, anyone who didn't hear Parsha Zachor, he's been motzi them in the laning, for the mitzvah of remembering what Amalek.
And I think that's also true during Kiseitze, he's supposed to as well.
That's right.
What I was told.
There's some who do that. It doesn't have to do it.
You're supposed to have it in mind because
the Chasam Sofer says that one has to remember Zachor every 12 months, once a year, which is 12 months.
Right.
So he says that when you have a leap year and you have an extra month, so it's going to pass more than 12 months without remembering it, and therefore he says on the leap year one should have in mind during Kiseitze.
That's
so that's what a lot of people are makpid on that. In a leap year when there's an extra Adar, which is going to be next year. Next year I think there's a leap year, which means that this when we get to Parshas Kiseitze this summer, a lot of people will have in mind. The Balko will have, most Balko know to have in mind that the Kiseitze.
Yeah, I was told he's also always supposed to have in mind in case, heaven forbid, somebody missed Parsha Zachor, they were ill or whatever, didn't hear it, that it's the last shot that you got to.
Right. It's not so common though. It's not so common that someone, nearly the whole of Klal Yisrael comes to Parsha Zachor. Someone who comes on a regular week and doesn't come Parsha Zachor is very rare. The sort of person that doesn't come Parsha Zachor generally wouldn't be there on a regular Kiseitze either.
It's true, unless they were ill. They're ill too.
In which case, you should probably tell the Sheikh Tzibur that he's. I don't think a regular Sheikh Tzibur has that in mind.
Really? Because I was told that.
I know, as a Kvar Kohen myself, I know that Parshas. During a leap year, I know that many people want to be Yotze.
Right.
So during a leap year, I have it in mind. In a regular Parsha, a regular Shabbos. Regular Kiseitze, I wouldn't have expected someone.
That's interesting.
I would say, I would recommend that someone in that situation should tell the Balko beforehand to have in mind to be Yotze. Makes sense.